Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello?
I have started the YouTube. It should be coming on soon.
All right, it says it is. I'm going to go
Okay,
check it. I've got it.
gotcha.
Nice job, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zoom. As soon as we get started, I'll put this back into speaker view, which Grace had recommended. So might have noticed it changed in the middle.
Oh, goodness.
Shall we get started? Well, wait a minute.
I'll wait a couple minutes for people to get in.
I think it's going to take a few minutes for people to sober.
Right.
Ruth,
Yeah,
can you put us in speaker view?
I will do that as soon as everybody shows up and we start with the talking. But right now I would like to see everybody as we do the introduction. So
Well, each person can change their view up at the
Oh, but
top.
we're-
right
right,
hand
people,
corner.
yeah, but
Recording.
I'm broadcasting to YouTube, so I'm going to have to go into speaker view, which I will do, but not yet. That's okay.
Okay, that makes sense. But the recording will look better if it's in speaker view.
Yeah, I understand that, so we'll do that.
So I'm getting it on YouTube fine.
Oh, great. Are you watching the earlier one?
No, I'm watching this one. The earlier one is on and recorded, and you can find it. So if people want to re-see what they saw, what they heard on Zoom today, you can go on YouTube and find it. It's been recorded.
Okay, yeah, we're live now. Advocacy meeting.
And so I would like to introduce Dale.
Oh, let's go to speaker view. Let's go to speaker view.
Joan, when people look for it on YouTube, do they just go to League of Women Voters Beach Cities and that'll come up?
Yes, but on the notice, it will have the whole exact Zoom number, but you could do a search on League of Women Voters of the Beach Cities and you should be able to find it.
Yeah, I just did that and it came up with a whole bunch of stuff, but if you click follow, then the current ones will come up because there were some other leagues from other places that came up when we did.
So Dale is our advocacy chair, and she's going to take it away.
All right, welcome to those of you who are either very interested or have a great deal of stamina, because it's already been a long evening. So we will try to make this as concise as we can. The first meeting talked about the pros and cons without giving away any information as to what position the League of Women Voters of California wanted to take. But this one will share the positions and the reasons for those positions. And on 4 of the 3 propositions and a bond, the League took either no position or stayed neutral. And we're going to put those at the very end. And I want to introduce the presenters, Diane Wallace, Terry, whom you saw in the last presentation, Grace Peng, Susan Gravy, Ruth Hart, and I will be presenting the neutral and no position positions. As you know, California will be deciding 12 state propositions. 4 of the propositions were placed on the ballot by the state legislature. 7 were placed on the ballot by supporters who gathered enough signatures and seek to make changes in state laws or the California Constitution. 1 is a referendum that seeks to overturn an existing law and was also placed on the ballot by supporters who gathered sufficient signatures. So we're going to skip 14 at the moment, because that was a neutral position, and we'll go to Diane Wallace for number 15.
Okay, thanks, Dale. Proposition 15 is commonly called the Schools and Communities First Act. The California League of Women Voters participated in the writing of the initiative, gathered signatures, which I believe they gathered more signatures than any other proposition ever, and is supporting a yes vote. When it passes, Proposition 15 will increase funding for cities, counties, public schools, and community colleges by taxing commercial properties worth $3 million or more at current market value rather than the original purchase price. The owners of these properties basically are paying the same taxes that they paid in the 1970s. So where all of us who own homes have gradually increased over time, they have not. Proposition 15 is estimated to generate between, as Renee said, 6.5 billion to 11.5 billion each year. And the beneficiaries will be the cities, counties, and school districts. 60% will go to the cities and counties. It is estimated that LA County will receive $3.74 billion. 40% will go to the public schools and community colleges. There will be no impact on owners of personal homes, renters in residential apartment complexes, and it reduces taxes for small businesses. Farmers will also receive a tax cut. This funding will allow school districts to respond to current and ongoing needs, such as reducing class size, responding to the increased costs for providing healthy learning spaces, and will assist with the increased use, the need to increase the use of current technology. And those decisions will be made by the school districts, not by the state. Prop 15 will also allow cities and counties to respond to the needs for things like affordable housing, providing PPEs to hospitals, responding to the needs of the unhoused individuals and families, etc., which obviously is a big problem in Los Angeles. Supporters of Prop 15 include the governor, the state superintendent of public instruction, cities and counties throughout the state, and obviously the California League of Women Voters. And I hope you'll vote yes on Prop 15 along with the League of Women Voters.
Thank you, Diane. And now we'll go to Terry for number 16. Terry, you need unmute.
Thanks, Dale. Proposition 16, League of Women Voters supports having opportunity for all. It's basically removing or banned affirmative action in California in 1996. Voting yes reverses that ban and allows schools and public institutions to take race, ethnicity, national origin, and gender into consideration when admitting students to colleges, hiring employees for public jobs, and for selecting contractors for public projects. Equal opportunity programs are a time-tested way to fight systemic racism and gender discrimination by leveling the playing field and giving everyone a chance at good public jobs and wages and quality public schools. Prop 16, voting yes, provides all Californians a fair opportunity in education, employment, and contracting. Prop 17, the League also supports, and that is restoring voting rights to Californians who have completed their prison term. So they're done with being in prison and they are on parole. Right now, nearly 50,000 people who have been released from prison and are on parole are denied the right to vote, a right that is owed to every citizen and important to successful reintegration into our communities. Our neighbors who are working, paying taxes, raising families, and rebuilding their lives deserve a voice in the policymaking that shapes their lives. Including their voices will help California achieve a more representative democracy. So vote yes on 17 to restore voting rights to those that are coming out of prison. The League also supports Proposition 18, which is the voting rights for 17-year-olds who will be 18 by the next general election. They should be able to vote in primary and special elections while they're 17, knowing that at 18, they will be able to complete that legislative cycle and vote in the general election. Young people are significantly represented in California's electorate. Allowing 17-year-olds to vote in primary and special elections will engage young voters while they are studying the issues in high school and have a strong interest in participation, yet sometimes can't. Once voting begins, it becomes a lifelong habit. Furthermore, fairness dictates that people who will be eligible to vote in a general election are civically engaged and at the forefront of movements to improve the communities in which they live. We would all benefit from hearing their voices at the ballot box.
Thank you, Terry. Jean, do you have any questions?
No, there are not any questions submitted.
Excellent. 19, Grace.
Can I share my screen? Can I share my screen?
Yeah. You should be
Host has disabled screen sharing. Can
okay,
you?
I'll fix that. Okay, should be okay.
So Proposition 19 makes a bunch of changes to Proposition 13, which caps property taxes at 2%, at 1% of the assessed value of a home, and the assessments can only go up 2% per year. And because homes have historically appreciated more than that, this has made property tax assessments highly unequal and disincentivize people from moving, even though their life needs change, their life needs and housing needs change. So Prop 19 was supported, was put up by the California Realtors Association, and this is the second or third time that they've put it up for a vote. It would change Prop 13 in several ways. The most significant are that seniors right now can port their low property tax assessments one time, maybe to move to a home that better suits their needs as they age and they can't do stairs or something like that, or they might need a home that's wheelchair accessible or to move closer to children. So we had a loophole so that people could move one time, but the Real Estate Association would like to sell people 3 houses instead of one. And also people who have a severe disability and might need a wheelchair accessible unit also of any age can also already get this property tax portability one time. And right now, if you want to port your Prop 13 valuation, you either have to move within the same county that you already currently reside, or move between one of these 10 counties that have reciprocal agreements. And these 10 counties, with the exception of Tuolumne, are all the most urbanized and populous counties in California. They cover over 75% of California's population. So that means only 25% of California's population does not currently have property tax portability for as a senior or disabled. So right now you only get one transfer if you're disabled or elderly or 55 or older. However, if you are the victim of a natural disaster like earthquake, fire, and flood are mentioned by law, you're allowed a once in a lifetime transfer to another home anywhere in the state, preferably somewhere safer. And this allows, so Prop 19 currently allows, Prop 19 would allow that and also allow you to buy a home that's more expensive. And this is a major extension of Prop 13, because right now your Prop 13 valuations are only portable if you buy a home of lesser or equal value. But under Prop 19, it would extend it to a more expensive home. And League of Women Voters feels like if you can afford a more expensive home, maybe you don't need another tax break at the expense of everyone else. And the fiscal impact, and it would also close a loophole. It would also close a loophole where children and grandchildren inherit a home that they do not use as a. Right now, you can inherit a property Prop 13 low assessment, even though that you're not going to live in it or you're going to rent it out or Airbnb it out. And Prop 19 would close that loophole and only give you the lower assessment, the inherited lower assessment, if that is your primary home and it's worth $1 million or less. However, so closing that loophole would raise maybe tens of millions of dollars in the near term, possibly rising to hundreds of millions of dollars in the future. But the elephant in the room, and that money would be used for fire suppression. And the reason that with real estate, the Realtors Association targeted the money for fire suppression is because the elephant in the room is that the rural areas of California burn very frequently. Here's a picture of north coastal California. Pretty much, unless you're right at the beach, the inland valleys have all burned. The inland valleys and mountains have all burned. And if you look at the Sierras, it's a very similar picture. There are areas that have burned, are burning, or will burn soon. So basically, the urbanized areas are the safest areas, and they're already covered by this one-time transfer. Extending it to a 3-time transfer allows realtors to sell you a house someplace that's in a fire corridor, and then sell you another house when you realize that's a mistake and you need to come back home. So, and the fiscal impact of this is that even if you're raising tens of millions of dollars, we spend hundreds of millions. In fact, this is an estimate from earlier this year. We're on track to spend over $1 billion this year on fire suppression in California. And that is just what California spends. It is not counting what the feds spend. Fire suppression is enormously expensive. The prescribed burns to clear the brush cannot be done as long as people are living in the exurban areas. As long as people live near the prescribed burns, you can't do a prescribed burn. So the fuels just build up and build up and build up. So nowadays, the biggest fires are not where you think the forests and the fuels are. The biggest fires are where the people live, because increasingly the houses are the fuel, and the people and their cars, they start the fires. And also you're unable to clear brush with prescribed burns if people already live there. So that is why the real estate agents threw in a bone for fire suppression. Already, because of our failure to build within the urbanized areas, we've sent 11 million out of the 40 million Californians who live in the wildland urban interface, where they are in danger of fire and also public safety electricity shutoffs. So the league feels that it is not good policy to send people where they will where they're at increased risk, and where they would also lack basic services such as electricity for large parts of the year. And the supporters of this, I looked at the data from the California Fair Political Practices Commission. It was, as of this afternoon, realtor groups have donated $56 million to support this measure. The California Democrats have donated $1 million, and two firefighting groups have donated $110,000 total. The only organized opponent is the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, and they only oppose the part about the inheritance loophole, where we are tightening up the inheritance loophole. They don't oppose the other parts of it, because that's just a giveaway to people that are already better off than most Californians. This measure is opposed by the LA Times, the Daily Breeze, the Orange County Register, and basically newspapers up and down the state. It's also opposed by California Republicans. It's also opposed by the League of Women Voters and the ACLU, because of redlining. Historically, the people who already benefit from Prop 13 tend to be white Californians. And so why should everyone else pay for that? Thank you. Are there any questions?
I don't see any questions submitted.
All right, number 20, Susan.
Yes, the League of Women Voters of California is recommending a no on proposition number 20. It's an initiative statute, restricts parole for certain offenses currently considered to be nonviolent, authorizes felony sentences for certain offenses currently treated only as misdemeanors. Over the past decade, California has made progress enacting laws that reduce the prison population and create a more effective and equitable public safety system. Proposition 20 would roll back many of the advances in criminal justice reforms and reinstate a get tough law enforcement system that believes longer incarceration is a solution to crime. It would make minor theft of some goods worth over $250 punishable as a felony. It allows the state to collect DNA from people convicted of misdemeanors like shoplifting and drug possession. The proponents of Prop 20 believe this measure will make the community safer, but it does not. Longer sentences do not lower recidivism rates, and reducing nonviolent crimes to misdemeanor charges does not increase violent crime. This measure will make it more difficult for incarcerated people to find their way back to a productive life. It would further erode individual rights because even if a person is proven innocent, the onus for removing the person's DNA from information from records is placed on the individual, not on the state. The League of Women Voters of the U.S. believes alternatives to imprisonment should be explored and utilized, taking into consideration the circumstances and nature of the crime. The LWV US opposes mandatory minimum sentences for drug offenses. The California League of Women Voters supports a criminal justice system that is just, effective, equitable, transparent, and that fosters public trust at all stages, including policing practices, pretrial procedures, sentencing, incarceration, and reentry. Please vote no on Proposition 20. Let's continue to move forward and not go backwards.
Thank you, Susan. We're going to skip over the ones where the league has taken either a neutral position or no position. So we're going to 24 and Ruth.
Yeah. This one has to do with, am I showing up? I'm not showing up.
Yeah, I think so.
Can people see me? Because I'm seeing
Yes.
somebody else. Okay, I'm seeing somebody else. Okay, the League of Women Voters is urging a no vote on Proposition 24. Although they support the protection of consumers' private data, it includes some beneficial elements, but they oppose due to the complexity of a 52-page initiative with impacts and nuances that are difficult for voters to discern and rollbacks to existing protections. Among the troubling aspects of Prop 24 is the expansion of, quote, pay for privacy through the addition of loyalty and rewards programs, allowing businesses to charge consumers more or provide worse service if they choose to exercise their privacy rights. The initiative also allows businesses to require consumers to direct each individual website and app not to sell information, which weakens the current legal requirement that companies respect a global opt-out for all services. In other words, if you're on some company's website and they ask you to opt in or opt out, you only have to do it once for each company. You still have to do it once for each company, but you don't have to do it for each individual page. These burdens are fundamentally inequitable, placing the onus on the average consumer to protect their own privacy. Working people don't have the time to do the paperwork, and they can't afford to pay companies to respect their wishes. Finally, the initiative comes less than a year after the 2018 California Consumer Privacy Rights Act went into effect, before we've had an opportunity to see how the new law works, or the legislature has had a chance to address any defects. And because of the complexity of the law and the onus that it puts on individual consumers, the league is urging a no vote on Prop 24.
And Terry, you're doing 25 and J.
Yes. The league endorses ending cash money bail. And that is a yes vote on 25 to replace the money bail system with the use of pretrial risk assessment tools that focus on safety and flight risk. And when it says pretrial risk assessment tools, I believe that's where the discussion earlier was around algorithms, or whether it's the judge that's making that decision. A no vote, however, could enshrine cash bail and prevent future legislative action to curtail the commercial bail industry. I think we know that this isn't perfect the way it is, but the legislature can amend this and get things to go smoothly once they can figure out what that portion of kind of how they're going to do the risk assessment. So it's a yes, because we can move forward and kind of leave this behind the cash bail system. And part of that, really a lot of it, it is estimated that almost 46,000 Californians, a disproportionate number of whom are Black or Latin, are being held in jail, but not yet sentenced. And sometimes this goes on for a year, especially with the backup that we have in the courts. Cash bail both criminalizes poverty and reflects the systemic racism that plagues our criminal process. We've just got to move away from the criminal money bail system to create a fairer and more equitable criminal legal system that balances public safety with the presumption of innocence. People who pose little threat to public safety should not be subject to losing their jobs, homes, and families simply because they lack the money to pay for release from jail while awaiting their day in court. And this happens a lot, and it sends people into homelessness and creates all kinds of other problems that we end up having to support families and other people with. So by doing away with the money, the cash bail, we can move forward. So vote yes on Proposition 25.
And are you going to do J?
I can do J. This kind of got thrown into the county measure, got thrown in at the very last minute. And there are, I'm not sure how many of you know about J. Let me find my place here. Measure J is a ballot measure that amends the LA County Charter to require at least 10% of locally controlled revenue, which is about $1 billion, to be reinvested into local communities and alternatives to incarceration. And the League does not support this, not because of what it stands for, but because we do not like ballot box budgeting of the 10%. But what Measure J does is it amends the charter. There are already things inside of the budget that would go towards this type of work in terms of reinvesting in communities. Right now, prioritization of monies have been going to arrest, trial, and jail for different individuals. Those are always the requirements because we've got systems already built to support that. But over the past 5 years, what's been going on in the county is that they have had support trying to go to care first and jails last, trying to reinvest in these communities and come up with alternatives to incarceration. But they really have not been able to prioritize monies, at least as much as could be spent. That's why this came up with a 10%, and the League does not support it. But many of the things that the charter does would be great for communities. It's just that it's very ill-defined because it was a last-minute measure. And they've been trying to define more about it. I would urge you to LA Times is now supporting it, which they didn't at first. It's worth your time to investigate to see what their offer is in terms of what could happen. The key supporters are 4 of the current supervisors in the county, including Janice Hahn and Mark Ridley Thomas. There's a group called Reimagine LA that is supposed to be affecting systemic racism and trying to have more investment in communities. And the key opponents, because what they're saying is this is a defunding, but it's not defunding. There's no new money. There's no new tax dollars coming. It's just a reallocation. And it shouldn't affect the police, fire, and healthcare workers, but, you know, because it is amorphous right now, because a lot of the things weren't fleshed out. When the measure first went on the ballot, the opposition is from the Association of LA Deputy Sheriffs, Alex Villanueva, people that are kind of in that, what are the terms? The arrest, trial, and jail group, kind of what we know of how to control things versus trying to improve those people's lives that are often in poverty.
So what are you saying, yes or no?
Well, right now the league is saying no because of the ballot box budgeting, but pretty much everything that, you know, every basic need that we stand for in terms of our positions would say to support this. So it's just a balance between how we think things should be spent and whether we should tie this to 10% budget every year. Now, I will say that there is a provision as they flesh this out that it say that we have, God forbid, you know, COVID going on for another year, budgets are going to get cut, and a 4/5 vote can be taken inside of the supervisors to reallocate the money. So instead of 10%, it could be cut back. So it's just a balance between, you know, every person, you know, the league is supporting, saying, you know, we wouldn't stand behind this because of that 10% of the budget. But I think it deserves looking at the other things that it supports.
I will be covering either the neutral and the no position propositions. Proposition 14, should California sell $5.5 billion in new bonds to continue funding grants for research and development of stem cell treatments. It authorizes bonds to continue the stem cell research. So there has been something in place, but the money has been spent. The bonds are long-term borrowing that the state uses to raise money for infrastructure projects normally. The state sells bonds to investors and agrees to repay the investors with interest according to a specific schedule. These are general obligation bonds, which are the most significant type of bond and are largely repaid from the state's general fund, which is supported primarily by income and state tax revenues. It's approved by the voters and repayment is guaranteed by the state. And the repayment is generally around 30 years. While so the neutral position is because while the League of Women Voters of California supports ongoing stem cell research, we're neutral on Proposition 14 because of the funding mechanism used and because of the requirements for a supermajority vote to amend its provisions, which is, I think, 70% equals the supermajority. Proposition 14 would authorize the use of general obligation bonds to continue funding stem cell research through the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, CIRM. However, general obligation bonds are generally designed for long-term financing of capital projects, purchase of facilities for public use, and repair and retrofitting of public facilities and structures, not for funding specialized research by an entity that has little state oversight. Furthermore, the legislature is prohibited from changing the law without a 70% supermajority vote, thereby restricting state representatives and their ability to carry out their responsibilities. Finally, profits from intellectual property agreements could only be spent on CIRM-funded research treatments, and the general obligation bonds are generally for infrastructure kinds of spendings, limiting the state's flexibility to spend funds on matters that might be more urgent. So the league has taken a neutral position, and at the end I will talk about some things that as you take a look at it and weigh your thoughts about it on how you can evaluate a ballot proposition. Proposition 21 is also a neutral position. Local government's authority to enact rent control on residential property. Should the current state law be changed to allow cities and counties to apply rent control to housing that's 15 years old or older, and limit rent increases to 15% once a new renter moves in? The League supports efforts to help resolve California housing crisis. We promote solutions aimed at increasing housing production in a sustainable, accessible, and equitable manner. Rent control policies are the one strategy to address California's housing challenges. They offer tenant protections and prevent displacement. Rent control may be an effective short-term solution, but studies suggest that its longer-term impact may, in certain cases, stifle the building of high-density and more affordable housing. Some of the modifications in Proposition 21 have been addressed through recently passed legislation. Because there are benefits and drawbacks to rent control, the League has chosen to be neutral on 21. Proposition 22, the League took no position, and this is the one that exempts app-based transportation and delivery companies from providing employee benefits to certain drivers. The question is, should app-based rideshare and delivery drivers be classified as independent contractors, not employees? And should rideshare and delivery companies be required to adopt labor and wage policies unique to these drivers? The League of Women Voters, California, their positions do not cover the issues that are contained in Proposition 22. Therefore, we take no stand on the proposition. So it's one of those that you're going to have to evaluate and use other resources, which we'll talk about. Proposition 23, the League took a neutral position. It establishes state requirements for kidney dialysis clinics. It requires on-site medical professionals. The question is, should outpatient dialysis clinics be required to have a physician on site at all hours when patients are being treated? And should they offer the same level of care to all patients, regardless of insurance, and report? And the other requirement is that they have to report infection-related information. The measure will require operators of chronic dialysis clinics to have a minimum of one licensed physician at the clinic whenever patients are being treated. And they must offer the same level of care to all patients, regardless of how payment is being made, whether it's government or private insurance. And they must make reports about dialysis-related infections to the state's health department and the National Health Care Safety Network. There's disagreement about whether the presence of a doctor is always necessary or could exacerbate a doctor shortage, and over whether costs are manageable or whether it's prohibitively high. Furthermore, the League questions why voters should be deciding questions of record keeping and medical staffing. Some of the provisions in Proposition 23 are partially covered under current California licensing requirements. The uncertainty of the cost and the benefit of this measure leads the League to take a neutral position. So there are three propositions where there are neutral positions and one where there is no position. When you're evaluating, especially these where we've taken no position, you may want to examine what the measure seeks to accomplish and determine if you agree with the goals. Determine who are the real sponsors and the opponents of the measures. And you've heard those mentioned throughout both the last presentation and this one as well. You'll decide if the measure is well written and clear. You'll consider the fiscal impact. You'll consider the complexity of the measure. And if the measure amends the Constitution, you have to decide whether you think it really belongs in the Constitution. And then, as you were warned in the last presentation, be wary of distortion tactics and commercials that rely on image, but tell nothing of the substance about the measure. Choosing yes means that you approve of the change that a proposition would make, and a no vote means that you want to leave things as they are now. I want to thank the presenters tonight. They've done a huge amount of work to make it clear and concise. Jean, you didn't have any questions this time, but I want to thank you because you had to sit through the second presentation, and we appreciate your work. And are there any questions on anything that you've heard?
Yes, this is Grace. I have a statement about Measure J from League of Women Voters, LA County Board President Fatima Malik. She really wants us to read it because we want to be very, very clear about why we're taking a neutral position on Measure J. Okay. This is Grace. Does anyone have their, is anyone watching the YouTube thing while they're watching Zoom? Can you mute that? Can you mute the video so we don't hear the echo?
I don't know who that is. Okay, it's muted now.
All right. The League of Women Voters of LA County will take a neutral position on Measure J due to conflicting league positions. While some of our positions support the goals of the proposed amendment, charter amendments must be taken to the public. This proposed amendment is rushed, and goals should be pursued during the regular yearly budgeting process in order to make sure there is meaningful analysis.
I've taken myself off the video.
Wait, what happened? Sorry.
Somebody
To make sure that there is meaningful analysis, including the evaluation of existing programs, education, and public comment. As a general rule, League does not support ballot box budgeting, and dedicating 10% of the unrestricted revenues is an example of this. The Board of Supervisors should, and in their deliberations of the budget, evaluate these different social equity programs and determine annually how best to fund them as circumstances change yearly. When the various social service items come up during their budget process, we would certainly consider lobbying for them if our position supported. Thanks.
In closing, as you obviously know that this is a really important election. The League of Women's Voters of the Beach Cities encourages everyone to vote on November 3rd or before. You should have received your ballot, and you can put your ballot in the mail or drop it in any one of the 398 drop boxes across LA County, or you can do in-person voting, and you can vote at any county vote center.
Can you bring your completed ballot to the vote center to hand it to the?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
And registering, the last day to register is the 19th of October. However, you can register in person on November 3rd. You need to bring a California ID, driver's license or an ID. You need to know the 4 last digits of your social security number. And so you can register at the last minute. If you find someone who has not registered, grab them and counsel them. LAvote.net is a really good reference for you if you want more information. You can check out the pros, cons, neutrals, and no position ballot measures by going to the League of Women Voters of California and Voters Edge. You'll find in-depth, nonpartisan information on what's on the ballot, candidates, judges, propositions. Make your plan, vote early, and your patience and persistence is duly noted. Thank you for your time and your interest.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have not signed anything new for probably 50, 60 years. How can I be sure that they'll recognize my signature now?
Actually, my husband and I had kind of a funny experience. We voted and signed the envelope, and by the way, you need to put your address on it, and it isn't that clear that you need to also put your address on it. But we went to the drop box at the Redondo Library. We put them in like one after the other. I got confirmation on ballot tracks that mine had been approved, and it took 3 extra days for my husband's to be approved. And I'm assuming that his signature was less decipherable than mine.
Do you,
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Kathy with the Hermosa Kiwanis. I've had you guys hosted our meetings. You've done debates at our hall. I so miss having you there. I've sent an email or a tech chat rather to have someone come to one of our virtual meetings just to talk about your process. But the other dumb question I had, because I feel really dumb, is I live in South Redondo, and the El Camino College election was not on my ballot, and I was sitting with a friend from North Redondo, and I was freaked out it wasn't on my ballot. Is District 23, do you guys happen to know, for El Camino College, if it's separate from South Redondo?
Grace, didn't you have an issue where,
Yes, did you go to Voters Edge and put in your street address?
I did not. Voters Edge?
Yes.
Yes, votersedge.org.
Okay. I called LA Vote. I'm supposed to hear from a supervisor, but in talking to friends of mine in Hermosa and North Redondo, it was on their ballot, but I'm in South Redondo.
Right.
It's not on mine.
So
voters.ed.
Voters, no, it's Voters Edge,
Right.
VOTERSEDGE.org. And
Okay.
it's also in the chat box.
And you
But-
could do
Perfect. Thank you.
But I know that there are different districts, and not every representative is up for reelection this.
Right.
Not every race is up for election this year, and so in this region, in North Redondo, Lawndale area, or Hermosa Beach area, there are two seats that are open.
Right.
I'm not sure if in your area there are any that are open right now.
Apparently it's not, because they were not on our ballot. I've been talking to my neighbors and I went, what's up? Do we have a ballot that's not good? I was all freaked out. So
it's not.
Go to Voters Edge, type in your address and find out.
thank
I
you
live in
so
South
much.
Redondo as well, and it was not on my ballot.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
So your representative is probably not up for reelection yet.
Yes.
Got it.
So you've got lavote.net, you've got votersedge.org.
Let me add one more, which is if you want to track your ballot to be sure that you haven't had a trouble with the signature, you can go to california.ballottracks.net/voter. So it's california.ballottracks.net
That's
Wow.
/voter.
and it will tell you if your ballot was rejected, and you will have a chance to fix that if that's the case, as long as there's enough time.
right, which is why one of the reasons you want to vote early.
I also am always freaked out about my signature maybe not matching, because Richard Riley was on here earlier and he said that he never knew whether he used his initials or what. And I have the same issue. I never know whether I'm registered with my middle initial or my middle name or whatever. So I always want to vote in person because that takes that away. But they do track your ballot, and you will have a chance to fix it if they have a problem.
They will either, and you can choose, they can text you or email you, and they were incredibly fast. It took, I think, 3 days for my ballot to be counted or ready for counting. The other thing I wanted to remind you is, please, if you have not yet done it, complete your census form. You can do it online. It directly impacts the funding and representative allocations and representation based on the census
I
information.
thought we were just shut down today.
Yeah, temporarily at least.
Temporarily, kind of what, if you haven't done it, watch to see what comes next. And if you can, complete your census form. It's very,
Thank you, ladies, for all you do. I really appreciate it.
Joan,
I'm gonna
I
sign
am
up.
sending, Kathy mentioned that she wanted people to perhaps talk at one of their virtual meetings, and
Like
she
for
sent me
15 minutes.
Right, she sent me a private thing. I'm going to send it, text it on to you to handle it as president. I mean, Barbara's not here. I send it to her, but
Okay, that's great,
okay.
Kathy. Just let me know what you want.
Yeah, thank you. I just like a 15-minute presentation
Sure.
on
We
how
can
you
do
guys work. We used to have you all the time. Thank you so much. I'm going to sign off. Good night.
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. And Dale, thank you for all the work that you've done. It was fabulous that you volunteered, and it's been a great, great, I think, program. Thank you.
a learning experience for me, and thank you to all of you who've done a great deal of work. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
We're done. I will